I did a follow-up study in early 2020 with 12 to 17-year-olds in the UK and found pretty much the same prevalence rate. So about 40% had experienced cyberbullying ever, and 1 in 4 had experienced cyberbullying in the past 12 months. So unfortunately, the figures are still very similar years later. And in fact, some of the research now that's coming out during the school closures as a result of COVID have found the same prevalence rates, and some studies have found an increase in cyberbullying at that time as well.
Are they linked, school closures and online trolling?
I think that a lot of the potentially face-to-face bullying that would have been happening may have transferred online, but I also think that the pandemic has caused a lot of frustration, anxiety, and uncertainty, and potentially people are displacing those feelings through aggression towards other people online.
And what about the long-term consequences? You tend to think cyberbullying is something very sadly teenagers experience, but hopefully as they grow out of their teenage years, it'll stop. But are there long-term consequences?
Yes, so of course the immediate effects are emotional reactions from that experience, but if left undetected without any interventional support from others, the long-term consequences are pretty dire. So it can impact somebody's self-concept and really wear somebody down, reduce self-esteem. It can make people feel isolated and withdrawn from others and lacking in social support. So it can fundamentally alter the way they view themselves, as well as themselves in relation to other people and their place in the world. And that can link to mental health effects like anxiety, depression, self-harming behaviors, and also maladaptive coping strategies through behaviors like substance abuse. And another long-term consequence is the effects on education and careers. So an inability to concentrate might be one of the outcomes. And of course, that has implications on education, absenteeism, high dropout rates.
And it's not just bullying, is it, that causes young people to be depressed? Just the act of going on social media can be damaging. I'm thinking of sort of comparing your life with somebody else's, or fear of missing out, as it's called.
Some social media, like social networking sites, they do allow us to present essentially a highlight reel of our lives with our best images, the holidays we've been on, all of our achievements. And that can make it seem as if everybody
is having a better time than you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everybody's life is more exciting and happier. And so if you fail to take into consideration the information sharing on social media and how that occurs in the context of self-presentation and impression management, and how that might be quite different to the lived day-to-day reality of that person, then you can get into that cycle of constant upward comparison, and that could lead you to become depressed. So we need to be more mindful.
Is there a gender difference here, Masha? Do girls get a rougher deal than boys?
Girls are more likely to have behaviors perpetrated against them that are sort of trying to damage their reputation. So for example, sharing embarrassing photos or having rumors spread about them online. And some types of harassment are gendered. For example, things like revenge porn and sharing of nude images, that is a gendered issue. But in terms of overall prevalence rates, it seems that it affects a wide population. And so those demographic differences may not be as pronounced if we look at the issue overall.
And how has cyberbullying evolved since the early days of MSN Messenger or chat rooms in the early noughties?
I mean, it's evolved considerably, just the number of platforms, the features, and how easy it is to share information and content very rapidly, also to generate your own content, and the number of users. It's become so popular now compared to that time. And what that means for cyberbullying is that situations can escalate out of control very, very quickly through distribution of content. And so it's the sheer publicity and the size of the audience that makes it concerning, because it means that images or information about you can be shared beyond your school or your work or your neighborhood or even the country you live in.
Would it help if a government or there was regulation that said you cannot go online anonymously?
I mean, that's one of the questions that have been put out, a lot of debates in this area about what to do exactly, and, you know, whose responsibility is it to do what? So where does a parent's or a teacher's responsibility begin and end? And when does it become a problem that social media providers need to do? And so I don't think we've got the boundaries mapped out very neatly, and that's one of the problems.
Dr. Maša Popovac, many thanks to you for joining us here on The Agenda.
Thank you.